Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Yang Rui in Beijing. In the early hours of Tuesday morning, the Chinese Space Administration launched a quantum satellite into orbit. This is the first step in what is hoped will be a network of quantum communication which is fast, powerful, and has uncrackable security. What is the importance of this technology and how does it work? How has China come to be a leader in its development? And what possibilities does it open up if successful? To discuss these issues and more, I'm very happy to be joined in the studio by Yang Yuguang of the China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation and Liu Xungjun, a researcher on quantum matters at Peking University. We'll also speak by telephone to Russian defense analyst Pavel Felgenhor. But before we begin our discussion, let's take a look at this.
3、2、1，点火！
The first of its kind. It's the world's first quantum satellite and a quantum leap in the history of science. The project, QUES, includes building 4 stations on the ground and 1 quantum teleportation experiment station up in space. Once completed, the satellite will be able to establish quantum optical links with 2 of the ground bases, thousands of kilometers apart at the same time. And the outcome will depend on one peculiar property: quantum entanglement. When 2 photons are entangled, they mirror each other's behavior, no matter how far apart they are, like telepathy between twins. The project's chief scientist is confident it will work.
The source of entangled photon pairs have never been sent into space. The brightness of our source is the best in the world, which can ensure that the 2 ground stations can receive a sufficient number of signals.
This technology holds great promise for global communications by improving the cryptography used to secure messages from prying eyes.
Quantum communication is known for its ultra-high security, as a quantum photon can neither be separated nor duplicated.
The quantum satellite has the ability to inform communicating users if any third party is present and trying to eavesdrop. At the same time, the information being intercepted would collapse or self-destruct. China will put into operation the world's first secure quantum communications backbone network between Beijing and Shanghai later this year. It will be used in the fields of finance, electronics, and government affairs. A global quantum satellite network is aimed to be up and running by 2030. A new era of communications is no doubt in sight.
Welcome to our studio discussion here. First of all, my question goes to Mr. Liu about the definition of quantum. I know it's difficult for ordinary audiences to have a proper understanding of this part of the science.
Okay, yes. So actually, quantum is a kind of fundamental property of the microscopic system. And I need to clarify that quantum is not a kind of elemental particle. It's not a unit of energy or some physical quantities, but it is a kind of fundamental property of the microscopic systems. For example, for the electrons, photons, and atoms. So this kind of particles, they behave very differently from what we think about in our everyday life. So maybe we can use a simple example to explain what is the quantum behavior, quantum property. For example, suppose we have maybe you heard of the famous example is called the Schrödinger's cat. So then we have a cat. For a cat, you can have 2 different states, the dead or alive. But for our understanding, we know that the cat should be either dead or alive. But if the cat is a quantum system, then you can say the dead and alive can be the 2 different quantum states of the cat. Then we can have a very special situation that the cat can be in a superposition state of the dead and alive. That means that in that case, the cat should be both dead and alive at every time. So this is very different from what we can imagine. Since in our everyday life, you can say that the cat should be either dead or alive. It cannot be both dead or alive. But if it is a quantum system, it can be in both dead and alive at the same time. So this kind of property is a kind of quantum property. But so of course, for a cat, it is not a quantum object. It is it's just a classical object. But this is true for the microscopic system. If we go to the atoms, the photons, electrons, we can have such a very special quantum superposition of different quantum states. And this kind of superposition can give us to very interesting phenomena and can lead to interesting applications.
Very difficult to understand for someone whose major is literature and journalism. But let me know very quickly your understanding and what you want to tell about quantum satellite.
Well, the quantum satellite is a project that mainly engaged in the study of quantum technologies, mainly in the quantum communication and some phenomena which need to be explained in the future, such as the quantum entanglement. The quantum communication is mainly engaged in the task of the quantum key distribution, which can have absolutely safe key distribution. This has already been tested successfully through optical fibers. And Mr. Pan Jianwei, the team leader, also has built a line on the ground between Beijing and Shanghai. This is a very long communication line, and which can have successfully distribute the encryption key on the ground. And it is the right moment for China to test this technology in space. That is because the key distribution, the distance is limited by the propagation of light quantum through the optical fiber. And also in atmosphere, because of the attenuation, it cannot propagate for a long distance. While in space, because it is in vacuum condition, and quantum can travel in a very long distance. So that is why we send the satellite into space and test this technology. And cooperation with the ground networks in the future, we hope that we can form a combined network which can connect between the continents.
Yu Guang, you seem to have answered all of my questions. So I've become jobless. No, Mr. Liu, whatever telecommunication that we use today is actually based allegedly on two theories. One is the theory of relativity by Albert Einstein. The other is quantum mechanics or quantum physics. Now, Albert Einstein says nothing would be faster than the light speed. Do you believe that quantum science will be able to prove that Albert Einstein is wrong?
This is a good question. I don't think so. At least as far as current knowledge of physics, we do not think the quantum mechanics can beyond the relativity theory about the light speed. I mean, everything cannot exceed the speed of light. Even for the quantum communication, actually we can, for the quantum teleportation, you can, we often say that you can transfer the quantum information from one place to another place immediately. But actually, to finish such kind of quantum state transfer, you have to use some classical communication means, like
such as the optic fiber.
Actually, after you transfer the state from one place to another place, you need the sender should use some other way. For example, use the cell phone or just the typical phone to tell the recipient what I transferred. Then, after this communication, the classical communication, then in the other place, the recipient can reproduce another, reproduce the quantum state in another place. So that means that although this state can be transferred from one place to another place immediately, but to finally finish the reproduction of the quantum state, you do need to apply some classical communication tools to finish the whole transfer. And that means that actually at the end of the day, you cannot exceed the net speed to transfer the.
What's your take about
state.
what he says on the speed itself with the use of classical means?
Yes.
He doesn't think that Albert Einstein will be proved wrong.
Well, that is already a question beyond the level of physics or science. It is already a question on the philosophy level. So the Einstein has a belief that any information cannot be propagated faster than light speed. That's his opinion. But the quantum entanglement tells us that if the state of two quantums are connected. If the status of one quantum changed, the other will be changed instantly. Einstein do not believe this, but many scientists, physicists, has designed some experiment to test whether Einstein is wrong or right. This has been proved that in a very relatively short distance, it has been proved that maybe Einstein is wrong. But this is the goal of this quantum satellite in space, because we will have quantum entanglement emitters which will transmit two entangled quantum to two different places in a very long distance. So that will be an effective way to test the result. But still it is uncertain. As I mentioned, it is already a question of philosophy level, because although even if this phenomena can exist, as Mr. Liu have mentioned, because we want to propagate the information. Even if we can have the information carried by the quantum and through the quantum entanglement, it is propagated to the other side, we still need some verification measures. These measures can only be achieved by traditional measures. So these traditional measures cannot be beyond the light speed. So that is the reason, I believe. Maybe Mr. Liu has a final result.
Yeah, maybe I need to make some comments. This question is quite beyond the discussion of this dialogue. But anyway, I would like to say that even the fundamental issues about this your question cannot be solved right now. It doesn't matter. We can still use the quantum communication. We can use the quantum entanglement to do the applications to the quantum communication and do other things. This is quite interesting. But anyway, it's a good question that maybe after we have the further technology developments, we can go back to the fundamental questions and to study what are the actual issues, what are the actual result.
How important is the concept of quantum entanglement for the launch of a quantum satellite?
This is very essential, actually. It's very important. For example, as you just mentioned, for the quantum teleportation, means that you want to transfer a state, for example, from the ground to the satellite. You need to apply the entanglement to finish this quantum teleportation. So the actual process is that you should have entangle the particles. The one particle is in the ground, is another one it should be in the satellite, and then you can in the ground you can do. And furthermore, you have the third state. Then in the ground you can do some measurements on the third particle and also the particle in the ground at the same time. After do some measurements, you can change the state of in the satellite, because the particle in the satellite and the ground are entangled, so they can change it immediately. After do this measurement, you can finally do some operation to transfer the state from the ground to the satellite. But this process is essentially based on the quantum entanglement between the two particles in the ground and in the satellite.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. You are watching Dialogue with Mr. Yang Yuguang of the China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation and Liu Xiongjun, a researcher on quantum matters with Peking University. We're discussing the ramification, implications, and impact of China's successful launch of the very first quantum satellite of its kind in the world. That, of course, will make a big difference. We'll be back in a short while. Stay with us, please. Welcome back. Yuguang, this project really puts China at the forefront of science in a way that it may not have been in recent times. How has this come about? Why is the Chinese government determined to make such a huge amount of investment in the research and launch of this first quantum satellite? And why are we way ahead of other developed countries in this particular area?
Well, I've also seen some arguments on the internet about positive or negative ideas about this choice. Well, actually speaking, I myself support this decision to launch this satellite. That's because in the years before, mainly because we are a developing country, mainly engaged in or invest most of the money in applications such as navigation satellites, remote sensing satellite, and so on. We do not invest much on the basic science and similar things. So with the development of our national economy, I think it is the right moment for China to do something in this field. Well, the best scientific result comes from the most perfect team, because we have Mr. Pan Jianwei's team, who is very outstanding in this field, and because he's already built the successful demonstration, technical demonstration line on the ground and proved to be effective. So it has the conditions and the requirements to test it further in space. That is the reason. And I should emphasize that the most hopeful field in this project maybe is the key distribution. The key distribution is based on the phenomena of the superposition, not the quantum entanglement, but it will also test the quantum entanglement, because this is more on the scientific research level, not for very near applications, I believe.
Thank you very much. Let me cross over to Pavel Falkenhor, a Russian defense analyst, for his comments on the issue of security. Hello, Pavel.
Hello.
Very glad to be joined here on this discussion. Now, what's your take on the security of a quantum satellite? Is it reliable? Can it be cracked?
Well, apparently, scientifically speaking, using these quantum physics for information communication, it's impossible to crack it. It's hacker free by definition. And that's why it has, of course, possible practical usages, especially in defense, and also most likely in other ways of communication, because it cannot be cracked.
I believe, excuse me, Pavel, I believe the Russian government always attaches immense importance to security and protection of the security. Why is Russia trailing behind China in this area?
Well, apparently China here is on the front line, and of course worldwide in this field. And also, of course, Russia right now has some problems in its space program. In recent decades, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russia has been increasingly reliant on Western technology, Western components and materials to make its satellites. Quite a number of the most advanced satellites in recent years sent into space by Russia were actually produced by the French, by the Germans, by other Europeans, and put together using American components.
If cyber communications, excuse me, Pavel, if cyber communications are unhackable, how will that change the international security landscape?
Well, I don't think it will change. Actually, the science in this project is more important. I don't think it will change that much, because modern cryptography, actually, it's also practically impossible to crack. So it's not that there is a great problem there, but the science of this thing has more wider ramifications.
Thank you very much, Pavel, for your participation.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Yu Guang. You have been able to attend many space science conferences in Europe and America. Is there envy from scientists in those countries at the level of funding that China provides for scientific research and development?
Well, because I have engaged in the activities of International Astronautical Federation, I have many friends in the international space field. Actually speaking, I haven't seen any jealous from them because we have a very close relationship and we work together, we share our ideas, and we make chances for this kind of corporations. And honestly speaking, there is already have some cooperation between China and Europe. For instance, in the years before, we have the Double Star program. We studied the space environment together. And also in many of China's satellites, we have payloads provided by European countries to have scientific results. And in the future, we also have get some help from the European side because they have telemetry support for our manned space programs and the lunar programs.
Excuse me, Yu Guang, are you suggesting in your understatement that the launch of the first quantum satellite by China is actually a result of a close collaboration between Europe and China?
Yes, because
But what about the issue of sensitivity? Because, you know, since 1989, the European Union has imposed arms embargo, and the United States puts huge pressure on the Europeans and bans them from exporting whatever high technology.
What you mentioned is a true situation, but because this program, the quantum communication is more likely to on the basic science level, and it is not already a practical one. I should emphasize that the communication in this project is mainly engaged in the key distribution, not the whole communication, because most of the data still need to be transmitted through traditional or conventional communication measures, but the key distribution will be absolutely safe in the future. That is very hopeful, but it can be have some enormous requirement from the commercial side and civilian usage. So that is the reason I think for most foreign countries are willing to help cooperate with China. And Mr. Pan Jianwei also, his supervisor is come from Austria, and Austria is also engaged in this program.
Well, politics aside, Mr. Liu, do you think the issue of sensitivity is a common concern for scientists in the laboratory?
I think it depends on what stage this research is in. In the current stage, I think it's not so sensitive since, as Yu Guang said, right now we are most focused on the fundamental science for this satellite. But in the future, things may change.
I probably should have called you Xiong Jin because I have shown enough affections for him by calling him Yu Guang.
Okay, so, yeah, that's great.
Now, with the fast-moving communication, let's get down to the fundamentals of this discussion. Why it's said to be the envy of the world powers with the successful launch of the first quantum satellite. It's the issue of security. Now, with fast-moving communications not vulnerable to interception or hacking, two areas of application immediately come to our minds: the military for security and defense, and consumer and business applications. Such a quantum communication has been or will be quickly set up between Beijing and Shanghai for civilian use and business application. How do you foresee a broader application for the quantum science in the foreseeable future?
Maybe Yu Guang, can you?
Well, you know that the most hopeful two fields for quantum science, the applications are quantum communication and quantum computer. And even for quantum communication, we have measures based on the quantum entanglement or not. This time we have the measure of key distribution, which is not depends on the quantum entanglement. This is the most hopeful way, maybe the fastest to be realized in the near future. But there is nothing is perfect. So even if the key distribution is ensured to be safety, maybe other parts can have some problem. So, but in the future, maybe other technologies based on the quantum entanglement will be tested, be useful. And also, quantum computer will be a hopeful field in the future to be useful for humankind.
Xiong Jun, the media in China displays jubilation. They have good reasons to be happy because this actually has become an issue of national pride, so to speak. However, I've also heard a very strong voice of criticism. They question the wisdom of making such a huge investment in the research and investment of the quantum satellite, saying the assumption that quantum communication will not be unhackable is wrong. What do you make of the opposition?
Okay, so first of all, I would like to clarify my opinion. For me, definitely I should support this kind of research. And the reason is because this is a kind of new technology. Okay, I know, yeah, there are different voices which may say some different negative comments on this issue. But I want to emphasize that for the quantum communication, it is secure. What I mean, the secure, it means that if we transfer the quantum information, it cannot be eavesdropped by some other guy, and cannot be the third party. They cannot detect the information. They cannot eavesdrop the information. So this is the key thing. However, this does not mean that the quantum information cannot be destroyed. It can be disturbed by the third party.
You mean the quantum satellite itself could be destroyed?
Yeah, it can be destroyed. Yes, I think the negative comments are mostly come from this kind of reasons.
Do you agree?
I agree.
Yes.
We can. You see that for encryption, no theory is perfect, but this time the encryption theory itself is absolutely safe. So that is a small part, but for the other part, it's not the business of this project.
Yeah, I would like to say something further, since although, of course, the quantum communication is not perfect in the current stage. Of course, it has weakness, that's for sure. However, this is a new technology. We should try to develop it. We can improve the technology in the future. Although we have weakness, but I think we should study it and we should develop it.
Are you both confident and convinced that 30 years from now, for example, the whole world will be able to develop a far-flung network of a quantum satellite communication?
Well, in my personal opinion, I believe that the key distribution will be more hopeful for the transmission of keys between satellites or in a satellite constellation. That is because we still have the problem that for some rainy days or even have clouds, we cannot transmit the key between the ground and the satellite. So I think between the communication between satellites in the satellite constellation will be more practical. And on the ground, we can depend on the optical fibers.
Very quickly, your forecast.
As far as I know, maybe in the future, 10 or 15 years, we shall have, maybe we can have more quantum satellites. In that case, we shall have a network, and then we can have the broad applications based on the quantum communication. I think this should be true.
Maybe your answer represents the voice of NASA, which keeps the distance cautiously from lawmakers and politicians in the DC, Washington. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for being with us. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.